Been a while. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Martin? Mr. Dakota?
Here.
Ms. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Here.
Mr. Hoey?
Here.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yeah.
6 present.
If there's no objection, the chair would ask that we take item 10.4 out of order. Is a vote to accept a grant award to the Butler Middle School Athletics Program. And so the vote would be, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the grant funded in the amount of $1,961 and $10,590 respectively from the Justin J. Foundation. The checks are made out to the vendors directly for the uniforms and wrestling materials. Ronald Fusco will forward the checks to the vendors for immediate purchase of the items. We have a second to the motion by Mr. Gignac. Discussion on the motion. Roll call.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next, we have the spotlight on, I'm sorry, Mr. Superintendent.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to recognize Mr. Fusco, who's right here. Would you please come over, show yourself? Thank you. And I don't know if you want to, just a couple words on your grant?
No, it was really good to get that. It was from J.J. Watt, who plays for the Houston Texans. We're probably not all fans of the Texans, but he does a inner-city middle school athletic funds, so we met all the criteria and put away for it. Didn't think we'd ever get it, but now we have a new mat, and Butler's well on their way to being the best middle school wrestling team in the city. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But thank you.
Thank you.
Now, special orders of business. We have a spotlight on excellence for the Lowell Public School retirees who were in the mayor's reception room earlier this evening, and I would just like to congratulate them on their retirement and hope they have a long and happy, many long and happy years. Does anybody have anything to say? All right, so the chair would entertain a motion to accept it, accept the order and place it on file by Mr. Hoy, seconded by Mr. Gignac. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next is Spotlight and Excellence for the Robinson Yellowstone National Park. Mr. Superintendent.
Next to you, I'm going to ask Robin Desmond, our Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you. There's representatives here today from the Robinson Middle School to briefly discuss their experiences at Yellowstone National Park during April vacation. This was a grant-funded program that allowed up to 20 students, I believe 10 went with 2 chaperones, to visit Yellowstone and have educational experiences for the week, and then hopefully come back to school and share some of those experiences. So I invite the chaperones that are here tonight to come up and briefly speak about their experiences.
I think we had 20, right?
We did 20, yeah, 10 boys and 10 girls. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Mayor Kennedy, the superintendent, and the rest of the school committee for allowing us this opportunity to come share at least a small part of, I think, one of the most unique and extraordinary experiences that Lowell Public School students have been able to take part in. My name is Dan Sargent. I teach 7th grade at the Robinson. I was also a student there many years ago, and I certainly don't remember doing anything like that, as much as I did enjoy my experience at the Robinson. We do have a quick little slideshow to share some of the pictures and views and activities that the children were able to partake in. But if it's okay with you, I would like to invite some of our students to come up and briefly share, introduce themselves and share their biggest takeaways from the trip. Okay, thank you. IT.
Okay, anyways. Hello, my name is Isaiah Nieves, and I loved all the animals that we seen in the Lamar Valley, such as the grizzly bears, bald eagles, wolves, bison, and all the great scenery at Yellowstone National Park.
Hello, my name is Cyan Rowan, and I was impressed by the Old Faithful geyser and how high the water went.
Hello, my name is Con Lee, and I was honestly blown away by all the sceneries. Every step you took, there was a new sight to behold.
Hello, my name is Catherine Fontaine, and I was astonished by the significant amount of wildlife that roamed free during the trip, specifically the bears and the wolves.
Hi, I'm Catherine Tama, and I was amazed by how the animals interact with each other and work together, like when the bison chase away the wolves to protect their family.
Hello, I'm Kara Stewart, and I would just like to say I was blown away by the serotinous tree that was split in half by lightning that we got to see on our lunch break, and I was also astonished by the travertine's color at Pellet Springs that we got to see on our first day.
Hello, my name is Jade Pierce, and I was shocked by the way the park rangers taught and took care of us and made sure we learned everything we possibly could.
Okay, selfishly, after hearing them, I have to share my takeaway. The entire trip was phenomenal, but my favorite piece was on the final night, we had a campfire, and all the students were able to pass around a bighorn sheep horn. And when they had the horn, they were able to share what the trip meant to them. And just hearing 7th graders talk about the impact the trip had on them, how it opened their eyes to such the big, great world we have. And if they so choose to enjoy it, if they take their opportunities, and how they need to dedicate themselves in order to do so. That was really, really powerful for me. Isaiah, could you get that All right, so again, we have a quick little slideshow to share some of the sights and scenery of Yellowstone National Park. Yeah. So lastly, I certainly would be remiss if I didn't thank Shal and Lou and the Summer Star Foundation for their just ridiculous generosity that allowed the trip to happen. You know, these students really appreciate it, and I know I do as well. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Did you just want to sit there? You want to stay there for that? Next, we have a spotlight on excellence for the Pine Arts School.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
if I could,
absolutely.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Sargent, Mr. Duggan, for bringing your students down here. And I must say, phenomenal job to the students for coming up here and speaking at the podium. It's not easy, and you all spoke so well. And it was great to see the photos of your trip and how much fun you had, and it was great to hear about how much you learned. And from the photos, it looked like your teachers had a great time as well. I just wanted to thank you for sharing that with us. And, we have some principals sitting behind me that I know are a little jealous that their students don't have that opportunity, but I'm sure they'll work hard to make similar opportunities possible. But thank you for being here, and a great job.
Mr. Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for the students. How many of you think you'd want to go back? That's great. That's great. A wonderful trip. So nice to see young students finally getting a chance to see what else this great country has to offer in terms of geography and history. So great job. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Sargent. Next was the spotlight on excellence for the Pine Arts School, but I think that they were not able to be here this evening. And so the next is the introduction of the new principals. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we've been recruiting quite a few principals. So we've been very lucky to have some of our own stars who decided to step up from the roles of assistants or coordinators and moved on to schools. And we've also been able to be very lucky to recruit some also different stars from outside. So let me introduce them one at a time, and I'll ask them to stand up, and so people can recognize them. First, we have for the Morey School, Mr. McCosker. Mr. McCosker, Fred McCosker was with us before. He spent many years in our school system, and you probably did every job, right, in the school. Thank you. Fred is currently the assistant principal at the Morey, and he stepped in last minute to help us out, and this year his team overwhelmingly, and I think it was unanimous decision by his team to recommend him, and we're very happy to accept that. Thank you. The next one is the new principal of the Greenwald School, Mr. James Neary, and that's another one that did all the jobs right around here, right? Mr. Neary has been, until his new appointment, has been in the central office in charge of our accountability and school improvement, and I know he has a long tradition of school improvement. We're very happy to have Mr. Neary with his expertise, because along with his appointment, we also have as I announced it in my email, we had this incredible grant that we got thanks to him and his team for writing it. And we got this grant from the DESI to help us in our turnaround efforts at the Greenwald. So congratulations on the grant, and congratulations for your appointment. Congratulations. The next one is another one of our internal stars, rising star, Mr. Kevin Andriolo. And Mr. Kevin will be taking over the Merkland's principalship. Kevin is currently our assistant principal over there. And again, this is another one that has been unanimously recommended by his staff. And I don't think they would have let us get away with it if we didn't accept their recommendation. He is so much loved over there, and we have great hopes for Kevin. He's a great guy, and congratulations and welcome aboard at the principalship. Thank you. And last but not least, from the people present here, we've been able to go out and recruit this person, so we were able to steal him from our neighbor. And that's, I'm not going to be able to face your superintendent for a while now. We've been able to steal Mr. Edward Foster, who is going to be our new principal at the Sullivan School. And Edward has a long, very long, successful experience and resume. And if you see his resume, you'll know what I mean. And he has already met a lot of the parents and teachers. And I think from the response he's gotten, they're very happy with the appointment. Welcome aboard. Great, thank you. And if I may, one last appointment that was made right after we put this list, and that's and he couldn't be here today because he's busy with his school event, and that's our for the Star Closa, and that's Mr. Jim Cardassi. Jim is currently our interim principal, and he was there for a few years as the assistant principal. And again, there was one where we put together a search committee, and the search committee overwhelmingly recommended Mr. Cardassi for this position. We're happy to accept that recommendation, and he's very happy to take on the job, and he apologizes for not being here because they have an event with the students tonight. Welcome to Jim.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? If not, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes for the FY 2018 budget hearings, so the chair would entertain a motion to accept and place on file the minutes for the budget hearings of Wednesday, May 10th, 2017, and May 17th, 2017. We have a motion to that effect by Mr. Hoey, seconded by Mr. Gignac. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. We have approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled school committee meeting for May 17th. We have a motion to accept and place on file by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, under permission to enter, do we have a motion to approve on permission to enter? We have a motion by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Gignac. Discussion. Ms. Martin.
Thank you. If I could we take the item, the Collaborative for Regional Educational Services and Training, out of this, and then we can discuss it when we get to the full report, if that's amenable to my colleagues?
If there's no objection, we'll do that. Hearing no objection, we'll do that by general consent. And so that we still have the motion to approve, to accept and place on file. Any further discussion? Mr. Gignac?
No, I was going to recommend the same thing. Yep.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Roll call?
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next, under memorials, we have several. The first is Brian L. McDonough, retired Lowell High School teacher. And also Brian D. Sheehan, father of Ashley M. Gallipo, Sullivan School teacher and brother of Mary Sheehan, Student Support Services Executive Secretary and Lowell School Committee Recorder. And Thomas Mike McCoy Jr., brother of Mary R. Bader, Executive Secretary of Finance and Operations, brother-in-law of retired Daly School custodian Ronald Bader, and uncle of Susan McCoy, Washington School teacher.
Did you want to read the thing I gave you?
And if I could just read this before we do that. Brian L. McDonough, retired Lowell High School English Department Chair, husband of Carol McDonough, retired Lowell High School teacher, father of Jeffrey McDonough, Maury School teacher, and Gregory McDonough, Career Academy School teacher, father-in-law of Robin McDonough, Lowell High School teacher, and Susan Silk, adult education teacher. right, I'm sorry, and there's also one more. Rose Vigliano, retired Shaughnessy School paraprofessional.
Hey, another helper here.
Next, we have several motions. The first motion is by Jackie Doherty. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Ron. I'd like to pull this motion for now until I have an opportunity to speak with the superintendent regarding clarification on the language. Thank you.
The next motion is by Robert Hoey. Request that the superintendent send a letter of appreciation on behalf of the Lowell School Committee to Paula Che, coordinator of the English Language Education, Ann Pang, Nicholas Bull, and Michael Joseph, parent liaisons, for their work and support of the annual ELE Awards Night. Seconded by Mr. Gignac. Mr. Hoey.
Thank you very much. I went to this awards night at the Stocklosa School. It was a packed house. They had a lot of food to eat. I couldn't believe what I seen there that night. There was 5 students anyways, former students of the Stocklosa, and they came back after they graduated from college. There was 4 girls that came back, and then there was 1 male. And the boy, they all graduated from different colleges, but I'm focusing on the boy that graduated. He went to Lowell and got his degree, and he was good at hacking computers. The government actually hired him to go in. They're doing a security clearance that I had done on me when I was in the Army. They spend a lot of money to make sure you're not a communist or something like that. But this kid got hired from the government. And he's going to be someone that's going to go to work for us soon to help us fight hacking of all our computers. So it's quite a job that he got out of that school. And I was impressed by all 5 of them, the way they came back and talked to all the Stocklosa kids. It was a great time. The place was packed, and all these people should be commended for what they done. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is also by Mr. Hoey. Request that the superintendent report on a meeting of safety and security with Deputy Durkin and the Police Superintendent Taylor. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Gignac. Mr. Hoey.
Thank you again. I remember bringing up a motion not too long ago about us just have the superintendent and Ms. Durkin get with the police and tell us how they feel about security. So I don't want to say too much tonight other than I brought this motion up that I feel like we need a subcommittee, and I'd like to have one at the high school. The high school subcommittee and whatever, any other subcommittee that wants to come to this meeting. I think we should talk about it. We're out of school in another couple of days. Friday's the last day. And then I think it's a good time to talk about security at the high school and all our schools. Some people misunderstand me when they think we're trying to get rid of police. I'm not trying to get rid of police. Just me personally think police should be outside our schools. I think we should have security inside our schools on our own. So with those things said, a few things, I think it's time for a meeting. And that's what I'd like to do, have one at the high school so we can invite a lot of different people there, like the police union, our staff that's security at the high school, and anybody that wants to come to it. So that's what I'd like to do with this.
So, Mr. Hoey, your motion asked for a report from the superintendent. So
Yes.
you want to wait for the report
So
from the
I'm
superintendent
thinking I can
before you-
wait on his report.
Yes.
I think what I really wanted to do is to have a subcommittee so we could discuss the report that they have. So I don't know if you're ready with a report tonight. I don't think you are, right? So,
Are you asking that the subcommittee be created, a new subcommittee?
no, I think we should just have one at the high school subcommittee.
Okay.
That would be great, but if they want to add another committee to it, that's fine. I want to welcome everybody to just talk about safety, that's all.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Ms. Doherty. Request that every school provides space for Katie's Closet so that the Lowell Public School children have equal access to the benefits of the program. We have a second on the motion by Mr. Dakota. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. You'll see I put a note, amount of space to be determined by the individual school site leadership. I think many of you may have recalled at the Teacher Appreciation Dinner, we had a very eloquent speaker talk about Katie's Closet, which is named after her daughter who passed away very, very young. What motivated me was a conversation I had afterwards with one of the organizers, that their mission was to have a Katie's Closet in every school. I know it's been at the high school, I think was one of the first places, and doing very well. There are, I think, only 4 schools that don't have Katie's Closet at this point. So I just wanted to make it a policy to encourage our schools, even if it's a supply closet, whatever space, and then they manage, they provide coats, boots, toiletries, items like that for our children who need them, and they provide a volunteer to distribute the materials and things like that. So I'm not trying to, infiltrate a school if they don't have the space, but I'm sure every school could find a closet so that we could share access to this wonderful program with all our children. That's my intention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. I'm sorry, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you do not mind, I have Deputy Durkin who'd like to report on that.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. I met with Katie's Closet last week, and we were talking about the fact that there are only 4 schools left. I'm happy to report that today they were at the Washington School. They've selected their location. They'll be painting, and it'll be up and running for August when the students arrive. The same with the Shaughnessy School. They're meeting with them next Wednesday, and the plan is that it will be in place by August. The other 2 schools, the Moody and the Cardinal, they will be working with them over the summer, and within the year we'll have those in place. So what I will do for you, since I'm reporting out on the motion, but I'll give you an update once things are all in place for all of those schools.
If I could just say, that's amazingly fast. I put the motion in last week. I love that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Mr. Hoey, request that the superintendent send a letter of appreciation on behalf of the Lowell School Committee to Kendall Wallace and Jim Campanini of the Lowell Sun, to the Lowell 5, to Jim Neary, coordinator of school improvement, and the parents, coaches, and administrative team of the Daly Middle School for their support of the Kendall Wallace Knowledge Bowl, with a special thanks to students and staff of the Daly School for representing the Lowell Public Schools so well. Seconded by Ms. Martin. Mr. Hoey.
Thank you again. Caroline Rochelo, I believe I left out her name, and I hope I said it right. But these people are amazing that they put this together. The Lowell 5, actually, this year, the Lowell 5 there, they donated, the winning team got a $100 bank account. Each player did. The second place team got a $50 bank account, and the third place team got $25 apiece. So the Lowell 5, I want to thank them personally, but I think all these people deserve a letter, and the Daly School just keeps doing it for us. They constantly make us look good. So Gignac was on his honeymoon. I thought he would have put this motion in, but I beat him to it. So thank you very much.
Any further discussion on the motion? I was going to wait till the end of the meeting, but I think we all want to congratulate Mr. Gignac on his recent marriage. How does it feel?
Well, she's watching, so it feels great.
Now you're in trouble.
Next on the subcommittees, we have the joint finance meeting of the Lowell School Committee and the Lowell City Council, and report and approval of the minutes of the meeting of Tuesday, May 30th, 2017. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep this brief. The school committee finance subcommittee met with the city council's finance subcommittee as a result of a motion by Ms. Martin. And the purpose of the meeting was to discuss the FY18 budget and more specifically review net school spending and the maintenance of effort agreement. Both subcommittees at length discussed net school spending and how it's made up, as well as discussed the memorandum of agreement, which is about 10 years old. So there were no motions as a result of the subcommittee, but there was an agreement from both bodies that we'd like the superintendent and his administration to work with the city manager and his administration to review the maintenance of effort agreement and come back to both bodies with some recommendations, if any, on how we can make sure that both parties are getting a fair deal. There were a number of questions raised that we're waiting for answers regarding some of the specifics, but it was a very productive meeting that we hope to continue the dialogue moving forward. But I'll make a motion to submit that as a report of progress.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the report as a report of progress, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Discussion on the motion. Not all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, we have reports of the superintendent. And those are items 9.1 to 9.13. So the first one is the Lowell Public Schools 2017-2018 handbook revisions. Any discussion on that item? The next is the disposal of surplus supplies. Any discussion on surplus supplies? Superintendent, did we want to have a discussion on?
Yeah, we want to have a really brief discussion on the handbook, but we also would need to have a vote with a roll call.
Sure.
And approval. Thanks.
Okay.
Roxanne?
So here is Dr. Roxanne Howe. This is our annual handbook review, and this year there are very minor changes to report, and I'll ask Dr. Howe to report on the Lowell High School handbook, and then I'll just alert you to what's different in the elementary middle handbook. Thank you.
So in front of you, you should have a brief summary of the different changes for the Lowell High School handbook. And if it's all okay with the committee, I'll just run through them all, and then if you have questions, we can come back. Page 1, the message from the head of school. Obviously, that's open to change. Page 6, we have updates to titles for central office staff, Robin Desmond, Gary Frisch, and Casey Nelson. Page 7, update to the high school staff. We have several to be determined: the head of school, athletic director, special education department chair, and it just came in, the science department chair. Name change for the director of the freshman academy, and then we removed the position for principal of alternative education from the book. Page 8 is an update of the mission statement, in addition to short definitions of the core values. This came out of the work from the new high school visioning sessions and focus groups, the NEASC study, and the Lowell High School leadership team. Page 11 is an update, the additions to the distinguished alumni roster. Page 12 is an update to the district calendar. Page 17 is an update to the AP section, updating the cost, adding the language if funding is available for the fee waiver language, and then just adding information about waivers for the test requirement with the language: a student in good standing with extenuating circumstances can apply for consideration for a waiver of this requirement with medical documentation. Page 19 is just an update to the language for the National Honor Society. Page 22 is an update to the earbud policy, came from our department chairs. The teacher may allow the use of earbuds in the classroom for educational purposes, but the earbuds must be put away before exiting the classroom. Page 22 also from our house deans, an update to the dress code to include hoods and any apparel that hinders identification. And then it removes a section, and it's transparent or revealing clothing, extremely short skirts or shorts, halters, tank tops, narrow straps, tube tops, or excessively low-cut tops or bare midriffs. The house deans wanted that removed because it's covered in the opening paragraph about appropriate attire, and there just seemed to be an issue of interpretation of the more detailed sections, and so it was causing different outcomes, so they wanted it removed. Page 32, an update for the in-house suspension. The House deans were requesting that no cell phones or other electronic devices are allowed in-house. Page 41, in the missing schoolwork section, we just wanted to add the following language for informational purposes, that students are encouraged to use Google Classroom for their assignments when possible. Page 42, an update to emergency dismissal to allow for a verified email. Again, this came from the House offices. What the handbook has always said is a fax, but in today's world, people use email. Page 43, an update for the language under perfect attendance, just to add clarity. Page 44, there's a new section that came out of the District Support Services Office to clarify procedures when it pertains to withdrawals and transfers of students under 16. Page 56, just an update on clubs at the high school. We now have a culinary club and the LHS Review, which is an electronic newspaper. And then the last update is pages 67 to 69, which was a complete rewrite by the Staff Council for Student Support Services based on state and federal laws on non-discrimination, equal opportunity, and grievance procedures. And that's the update to the handbook.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the revisions by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Discussion? Mr. Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a quick question on page 8. You did answer that question. I had a question when I was looking at it, saying, why wouldn't you put the House deans' names next to the House deans on page 8? But you list them later on 2 or 3 pages later. I thought it might be good to include them on that page. I don't know.
On page 8, which is
on page 8, yep.
Which is the update to the mission statement?
Right, they're listed later on, but on page 8, it's just, you've got phone numbers for the clerk number, and then I'm in the wrong one right now, yeah. I think it's over here.
I know what page you're talking
You know
about.
what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
so you just want the House dean numbers.
Right.
Okay.
So I thought maybe putting their names there as to who that House dean is.
Well, as you can see, it's all generic for
Right.
purposes of changes. Okay.
Kind of struck me.
Okay.
I'm good with it, though. Thank you.
Are we all set with that? We don't need a motion to, okay. All right, so the motion is to approve the revisions Part 1 and Part 2 for the high school, and the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Thank you. Next, we have the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The elementary?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So first off, I'd like to thank Dr. Roxanne Howe, who always manages to convene all of the staff at Lowell High School to review the handbook annually, and then we meet with staff council. I also like to thank them for their input and assuring that we're always aligned with state and federal laws. The only addition to the elementary middle handbook that is different from what has already been mentioned that you voted on is an update to clarify the elementary promotion policy. We did not change the policy, but over the last couple of years, we've been having a number of questions from parents and from our own leaders. So we felt it was imperative, after talking with our leaders about it, that we clarify a few words on that. So that's the only change there.
So the chair would entertain a motion to approve the revisions for the elementary and middle school handbook by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Gignac. Discussion, roll call.
Ms. Martin? Yes. Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next is disposal of surplus supplies. Do we have a motion to approve by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Dakota? Discussion, roll call.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next, we have satellite meal updates. Any discussion on satellite meal updates? Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Of course, I was going to speak. I just want to thank the administration for putting this together and updating us on the progress that has been made. I knew it was going to cost money to make the improvements, but I definitely think it's needed in order to provide high quality, decent-looking meals for the kids. I will mention that my colleague, Mr. Hoey, caught something. Was it on this report? It had an extra zero.
Cardinal O'Connell School.
The Cardinal O'Connell School has an extra zero. It probably should be $1,000 rather than $10,000. Hopefully it's not $10,000 for bowls and serving utensils, but I expect you'll make that correction. But I also just want to thank Aramark for the delicious food and presentation that you did for the teachers' retirement celebration before this meeting. I think the teachers deserve that, and you did a great job. So thank you for the update, and I think hopefully we'll see continued improvements, especially now that you have a new Mercedes van. So hopefully the food will be just as good as the vehicle. So.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. So the total here over the course of 3 years, if I'm reading this right, $263,512, is that accurate? So that will provide the updated materials and staffing across these 6 schools. Is that coming out of the revolving account, the food service revolving account?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's it's a pretty large number, obviously. How does that impact? We have a lot that's coming out of that account in our current budget. How will that be accommodated?
We are, obviously, with this memo, we're phasing that over 3 years. So we anticipate to increase participation for school breakfasts as well as the summer program that we're increasing the meal participation during the summer with the new truck. So we believe that we're going to grow the program and that there will be adequate reserves to fund these new initiatives at the satellite schools. I want to thank Sharon Lagasse from Aramark and Mike Cassidy, Assistant Business Manager, for their work on this, and also like to thank Robert Gignac and Robert Hoey for going out and tasting the meals and talking to the students and the teachers, and that brought it to the light. So their effort of highlighting this, we sprung into action, we responded, and I think we're making a difference. And I want to applaud again, Mike and Sharon, for the good work and this good proposal. I think it's going to do good for kids, and I think that's what it's all about. Thank you.
So if I could, and I certainly echo those sentiments, in terms of our, do we have a sense of what the percentage of usage is that we're at now? If we're projecting an increase that's going to be able to support this, what's our percentage right now of participation? I think that's the right term.
Yes. I'm going to ask Sharon Lagasse and Mike Cassidy to come to the podium and to answer that question.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. The anticipated increase in participation in breakfast, the goal is to get to 80%. Currently, Lowell is experiencing the highest breakfast participation in the state. We're currently at 68%. And we were on the superintendent's report for having the highest. The goal is to get to 80%. Michael and I have put together the gaps in the schools where we have opportunities to grow breakfast participation and use the data that we have from other schools. So we have projected numbers of if we flip them to different models that we have real data from and experience from, that we'll be able to grow participation. So we're feeding more kids, giving them more nutrition, and we're also bringing in more revenue into the district so that we can support bigger and better things for the satellite schools. We'll also be able to employ more, we'll also be hiring more employees to provide those services to the students in the school. The truck we're not really quite sure how big. The potential is enormous for the truck. The truck is on its way, and we'll be out on the roads and working with community members to grow the summer program as many kids as we can possibly feed. Yes.
I just want to emphasize that we are the highest breakfast participation in the state. And we still have a few schools that don't have breakfast in a classroom. And next year, it's our goal to make it 100% district-wide. So that should increase our revenues. We're working with some of those principals. They have some unique programs, and we're going to work with them over the summer to implement that next year. So that's an additional revenue source that'll cover some of these costs.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. I think that's certainly ambitious, and I think that's great. Will we be able to track this over time as part of our ongoing monthly budget reports? Just because it's something that we should be able to see over time.
Yes, that's an excellent point. We do provide the balance in the food service fund every monthly financial report.
But the percentage?
But perhaps we can provide a separate additional report, shows the revenue and the expenses, provide more detail for the school committee.
I think particularly about the usage, because I think I think the budget information I'm certainly interested in and want to be able to track, but I think the usage is something that we also want to be able to track over time.
I think that would be exciting to see those numbers creep up.
Then we'll call it exciting. Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the satellite meal updates? Mr. Hoey?
Yeah, just real quick here. At the end, you did a survey, the children at the LeBlanc School. I kind of like this, some of their answers. But I always said I think it's real important about the fruits and vegetables, but when you just keep giving apples and the same fruit all the time, you got to mix it up. And I see you've done that, and I like the responses from the kids. I think that's a good idea. Whose idea was this, to do the survey? Was it yours, Gary?
We conduct a survey, but we had to do it a little bit differently to get the results that we wanted to get from the kids. So we tried it electronically. We didn't get the feedback that we really wanted. So then we did it handwritten. We worked with the staff at the LeBlanc. So we were really able to extract some solid things that they were really interested and not interested in. But the main goal is to bring, more variety to them. The way that we're serving there now today is dramatically different than it was before, and I think they're really pleased with that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to the summary of the RFP process for the lease of classroom space. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to capital improvement report.
No way.
I'm sorry.
Just to back up a bit, is there no vote we need to take in terms of that budget, those budget changes for the satellite schools?
I guess if you want, the proper
want.
vote would be, if the Lowell School Committee is agreeable to this plan, I am recommending that a motion is approved allocating funding for each year of the project. Did you want to make a motion?
I'd make that in the form of a motion.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's seconded by Mr. Gignac. Discussion, roll call on that motion.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, One absent, approved.
Next is a summary of the RFP process for lease of classroom space. Any discussion? Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping that the administration could present this to the committee and the people at home.
Yes. Can I? Thank you. It's a brief summary of where this came from. As you know, we have added a day school, and which was reflected in our budget, and it's very much a part of our budget, and it's really important that we do start this day school this September. If not, we would have to come back to re-amend our budget for some other numbers. So we looked at several places, and we floated an RFP, and we've had some responses. And I'm going to ask first Mr. Cassidy to come up and tell us a little bit about the RFP, how it went on, the process, how we got into selection of this place. And then Mrs. Jennifer McChrystal was also here to give us any other information on the program itself and how it's going to be implemented. Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to give you an update. I'll mirror most of my conversation around the memorandum that you received. The business office developed an RFP for the CSA program, and it was approximately 11,000 square feet. The RFP was released at the beginning of May, and it had a number of specifications, including 8 classrooms, a number of administrative spaces, and also some programmatic spaces such as timeout rooms and break rooms and bathrooms, of course. So we worked with the City of Lowell and the Chief Procurement Officer to get this out on the street. We met all the 30B requirements. We advertised in all the right spots with a deadline of June 12th, 2017, which was last Monday. We moved pretty quickly. The superintendent appointed an evaluation committee. We convened that afternoon to review the single proposal that we received for this space. We quickly did a site visit to the space. We made a determination that the space was advantageous. We moved forward to obtain the cost proposal, which came in lower than what was funded by the school committee. So we recommended that the lease agreement move forward in front of this awarding authority to the Collaborative for Regional Educational Services and Training, which is also known by CREST. The property is located in Methuen, Massachusetts, on Broadway Street. In the back, you'll see they do have a campus. They currently have a campus there. They're transitioning out to other spots. This is currently classroom space. I don't want to take away any information that Jen is going to share with you, but this space was used by some of our students in the past. When we looked at the site, it was very accommodating for our students. And remember, our program is 2 pre-K, 4 elementary, and then 2 middle school, which this space is quite accommodating. That was right? Okay, good. Once again, the committee, as we were reviewing this, we feel the same, probably feel the same way as this committee does, which is this is not in the Lowell Public Schools. Excuse me, in the City of Lowell boundaries. It is a Lowell Public School program, which will be located in Methuen, Massachusetts. There was no determination in the RFP that stays in the boundaries of City of Lowell. The reason why is that we were under a great time constraint. If we did not get any property or bidders in Lowell, we would have to rebid it. And unlike a district or a department who may buy pieces of paper and pens, which could be a 2-week bidding process, the solicitation of property is a 30-day process, which would, if I had to rebid it, or excuse me, if the business office had to rebid it, it would bring us to about June 20th. And this governing body would not see, this appointing authority would not see it until your school committee meeting in August. And by that time, it would probably be very doubtful that we could have that facility, if we could find a facility in Lowell, open by the start of the school year. So, as I said, I'm expressing some of the feelings that were brought up by the evaluation committee. I think this committee may feel the same way. We've seen the site. The site is a great site. I think the only challenge is the time and space between the students' homes and the educational facility.
Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. I just have a number of questions, if we could quickly go through them. First, I think I had put on a motion to request that we receive all information related to this process, including the RFP. I don't ever remember receiving the RFP. And on the report of outstanding motions, it says that has been completed, but can we get a copy of the RFP?
Absolutely.
Okay, can we get that soon? Because I had my own vision of what we're looking for, and but we just never agreed upon what was actually going to go out on the streets. I think it's great that the building is basically built for this type of thing. I wish it was in the city of Lowell, but I understand. Just nobody from Lowell submitted a bid. But some of the questions I have are related to transportation costs. So what are we looking at as far as projections for transportation costs? And I think when we were talking about creating a day school, one of the major pros was having a school in Lowell, shorter bus times for the kids, and lower transportation costs. So, Mrs. Superintendent?
Yes, if I may, I'll let somebody else to answer exactly the transportation costs expected for next year. But I just want to emphasize something. This is not a permanent solution. We are currently working with the city in discussion to secure a permanent space within Lowell.
Right.
And I think the city administration has been very successful in that effort, and they will be providing us with the space to do this. But unfortunately, by the time we got that going, that space will not be available probably at the soonest, very, very aggressively. At the soonest will be around February or so. So, but for sure next September. So this is 1 year. So those hypotheses, if you wish, that were presented, or those when we asked to do a day school, they're still holding. I mean, we still think that several reasons, but one of the main reasons we opted to have our own day school is definitely to reduce the transportation costs. Unfortunately, this year, because we working with the city, we couldn't make it happen in September. There will be a slight change in that area, and I'm going to turn it over to either Mr. Fresh or Mr. Cassidy to give us a little bit better understanding of what the transportation cost is expected to be for this year.
All right. So we worked with the special ed department, and we identified some of the students that would be coming back to the district, some of the students that would be likely candidates to attend this school. We're estimating that an additional minivan and a minibus will likely be needed to transport the kids, and the cost of that is right around $90,000.
Okay.
It's once again, it's a one-year transition period. There's still a savings from not putting those students out of district. I know that doesn't make you feel any better, but there's still a value to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that some of those, it's important to note that those students were being transported in district already. So it was really moving some money around for our internal document of moving our in-district to out-of-district, and looking at kind of the students that fell outside that transportation bubble, and we're trying to get them to the Methuen site for school opening.
Sure. Great. Since you brought it up, Mr. Superintendent, I think the city manager had mentioned it to the council last night. Can you just briefly discuss the situation? I think I know a vote was taken last night by the city council to declare the Laura Lee as surplus. So, and that's a part of this discussion that you're talking about here. Just because after the meeting, I was in the hallway and somebody grabbed me and said, "You're closing the Laura Lee," and you know, fortunately, I bumped into Ms. McChrystal and I had an answer for that person. But if you could just provide. Somebody could just provide an update on what that process actually is.
I can do that.
Okay, great.
So last night, the city council declared the Laura Lee surplus, which doesn't mean that anything will happen to the Laura Lee until the new site is available. So the Laura Lee would stay open until the new site was available, and then the Laura Lee would no longer be needed. So what we've done is, and the negotiations continue with the Elks up in Pawtucketville for a swap of properties. And there are RFPs that have gone out and appraisals have been done on 3 different parcels that would all be involved in that. The Laura Lee property would be involved in providing funding for the move when it was done. But I think that, and Ms. McChrystal can probably talk about this part of it better, but I think what we'll be able to provide is a day school for a lot of students, a lot more than what we can do now. And I think that the property will also have the advantage of allowing for future expansion, at some point in the future. So that's where we are now, is the RFPs are, I think 2 of the appraisals have been done. 1 appraisal is underway now, and that's the shared appraisal. That the city is sharing the cost of that appraisal with the Elks. And so it will just go forward from there. But that plan has a lot of moving parts, but all the parts seem to be moving. And if we can pull it off, then I think it will be really good for everybody, and will allow those students to be able to go to school in Lowell rather than in Methuen or someplace like that.
That's great. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I think it's great news that we're able to make those steps in the right direction. And it's important for the residents to know that although this location is in Methuen, they're going to be educated by Lowell Public Schools teachers. They're going to be Lowell Public School students, so they're going to have access to all of the services that we provide, which I think is definitely the step in the right direction. I just think this is it's a great temporary fix, and I think everything's moving in the right direction with your leadership, Mr. Mayor, and I think, I'm happy to support this.
Mr. Mayor, if I could bring up Jen McChrystal.
Sure, absolutely.
She had different eyes as we were doing site visits. I was looking at one thing, she was looking at another, so I think she could give a programmatic perspective better than I can.
So I think you actually made this very easy for me, because a lot of what I was going to say, you've said, and I just wanted to start by thanking everybody. This seemed to begin 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago. We started talking about how do we support our students and families in Lowell, and what are the right decisions to make sure everyone has access to the best services. And since then, I think I visited almost every church basement, synagogue, office space, Literally, one of my favorite moments was when Ricky Underwood literally jumped out of a van with Janine Durkin and Gary Frisch, myself and Ricky, and he started knocking on doors looking for space. John Dakota and I have been out. We have walked through Lowell Public School buildings. We have been everywhere. And some people were really honest with us and said, yes, we have office space. No, we don't want to share it with students. It's not good for our businesses. And other people said, we're really interested and we'd love to work with you. And we looked at some other school properties in Lowell. However, they weren't going to be approved for a day school because for whatever reasons, maybe they didn't have elevators, the bathrooms weren't right, and it was going to be very costly and effective. So when we put out the RFP, obviously we were hoping to be able to get something in Lowell because that's our ultimate goal, and I cannot thank the mayor and the city council and the city manager and the superintendent and his team enough, because one of the outcomes of all of this work is that we're going to be able to upgrade the Laura Lee building, which is grandfathered in right now, and expand our programs, which is very exciting. And so the good news is we got a day school. Unfortunately, it's not in Lowell for next year. It's in Methuen. But the great news is we got a day school. We got a day school that is already DOE approved, that it is move-in ready. Our students in Lowell have been in that building for years and years, so we know the location. Our staff has been there, and it's ready to go. It is fenced in. So any door you go out, there's a fence, which is really good. Some of the things that I was pointing out that Mr. Cassidy may not have gotten excited about, but I definitely was there's already hooks in the ceiling to put swings in, because this was a school for kids with autism. So when we're thinking about a sensory room, it's already built for those specific needs. And we are going to now allow our staff to really work with our student and families and start to build that bridge for a transition to come back to Lowell. And what this does, it allows us to provide a good education using Lowell staff for Lowell students and plan the transition back to all of you to Lowell. And, you know, our alternative as we talk about busing and transportation, we're busing kids together that we can plan and be thoughtful about the supports we do for them versus sending them to 4 or 5 different schools and buildings and then trying to bring them back. This allows us to be purposeful and thoughtful about that. And I've stood up here as a SPED director and talked about what we need to improve our capacity for our staff and our students and families. And I'm going to tell you right now, standing up here as a teacher, that you never give up. You never give up on your students. You never stop getting what you need. And this is a first step in making sure our students are educated by our amazing Lowell staff and have the supports that they need. And so as we start thinking about the bridge to bring these students back, you need to hold us accountable because we want our students back in Lowell. And that is our plan in working with the mayor and the city council to update you. And we have a lot of ideas about how we can shift our populations to build capacity and have 3 sets of day schools in our city. One for our elementary kids with emotional behavioral disorders, one for our high school and middle school kids with emotional behavioral disorders, and one for our kiddos with autism. And so we really want to continue to build, and I know this is part of the mayor's vision, is to use the talent and skills of our Lowell Public School staff so that we can start leveraging tuition from other communities once we can build our capacity. So as I stand here as a teacher for you, we're really going to be able to build a bridge to make this property work because it is ready. There are conference rooms where we can welcome parents. Thanks to Ann Sheehy's job fair that we held, we met a lot of amazing staff. We did initial interviews, and we're ready to start doing home visits and planning over the summer and having everybody able to walk into this building right at the beginning of the year. So we're going to continue with our goals to build capacity, putting our students and families first, and really be transparent and thankful for all that you guys have done to support all the students and families in Lowell. So.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, oh, and yes, so it also comes with desks and tables and office equipment. And the other beautiful thing for me is because it is a campus model, the CREST staff is also going to be there. So we're going to have our own nursing staff, but the CREST staff has a nurse as well. So if there was ever an emergency, we have all of that capacity right there. And definitely CREST was already feeling us out like, ooh, how many OTs do you have? And do you want to share space? And so I really think we're going to be able to build our capacity internally to work with these kids and also help CREST as we partner with what to do next year so that the following year we're ready to transition back into Lowell. And we've also purchased specific materials already that we know are being used with our kids at day schools and out of district settings. So we're going to be able to transition our kids and families into the curriculum well.
Ms. Martin, are you all set? Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. So I think that, you know, obviously this is an idea that we've been very supportive of, and I continue to be. I do think that, you know, I'm concerned that, you know, I didn't know we were moving to the Elks. So if that's a conversation that's been going on with this group, I don't know that. So I haven't seen any reports that would tell me that, you know, when I read this, I was assuming we were going to be there for 3 years, because it's a 3-year contract, you know, 1 year and then two to renew. So the short-term nature of that was not apparent to me. I think that, you know, again, it's not a shock that no one's happy that this is in Methuen. I mean, that's, you know, and as you describe it tonight, I understand why that decision was made. It's a communication issue. This is something that I think Student Support Subcommittee should have been involved in and been informed about over the course of time. I'm not even on that subcommittee, but I think this has been a major move on our part, and for it to have been crafted and us to be getting information when we have no other option. I mean, the reality is that no one can vote against this right now. If we wanted to put additional work into finding a Lowell location, if there was anything that we wanted to discuss, we have no opportunity to do it because we've been forced into a corner and we have no options as a committee. So I just think that, you know, it's a circumstance where I think that, you know, I recognize how we come to this point, despite, you know, the tours and everything that I know some of you participated in over the course of the year. But for those of you who were involved in it, I'm sure that this is something that you were expecting and had been informed about and all that. I say this as a member of the school committee, and for any constituent who may be watching this, there's been no conversation about the Elks, about, you know, all this other stuff. So it's difficult to be, you know, to kind of go through this whole process and just be presented with this as our only option at this point. So again, having no other choice but to support it, so we can look forward to that vote, which I think will be unanimous. There could be a lesson perhaps maybe someday that the process that we use in doing this work could be a little more transparent, and that we could utilize the structures that are in place to kind of share this information over time, that I think would be more effective for the work of this body. Thank you.
Let me just say that the lack of communication is my fault and nobody else's. And I think the reason for that is, as I said earlier, there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of balls in the air to make this work. And those balls could all fall on the ground, and then the whole thing goes through. And so it makes me wonder if I've almost said too much this evening. But That's the long-range plan, and it still has a way to go, but it is at least moving in that direction, and all parties seem to be interested in having it move in that direction.
Which I think is great. We're one of those parties. And if some of us are involved and some of us aren't, then that's a problem. I'm just, and I understand what you're trying to accomplish something that has great complexity. There is no government purpose that can be served without public awareness. So it just doesn't, I mean, I know you're trying to make a lot of things work for a lot of different people, but that can't happen without there being full disclosure, certainly not just to us, but to the community as a whole. And I don't say that's your purpose. I'm just saying, overall, the lack of communication through this and, other situations, it's problematic.
I think that probably the time to communicate it would be once the RFPs are responded to, and then it becomes, it's just more solid than it is right now. I think that the situation somewhat is in flux, even though, as I said, it's all going in the right direction. So I think at some point in the near future, that there would have been proper communication with every member of the school committee. I think that it happened to come up this evening, and so, and it was before. In order to do the RFP, we had to declare the Lowell surplus, which kind of put it out there a little bit, maybe a little bit before we wanted to, and that's really the problem. Mr. Hoey.
Just got a quick question for you. How many children does that building serve?
The Crest Building,
Yeah.
our goal right now for next year is to try to fill it with 40 students.
40. Okay. And how many do we have at the Laura Lee School? About that, right? 35, is it?
Yeah, the number varies. They're licensed for 35 students, I believe. And they're actually sending back, I think, 7 students are moving from the Laura Lee back in district next year because the students had made progress. And then our goal is to take students that are in out-of-district schools back into the Laura Lee so that we can, again, have more students in Lowell. But that number's in flux because the students change.
Super, thank you.
Yep.
Just one more quick question. Mr. Underwood, is he still here? Rick, could you just come to the mic for a second, if you don't mind? I actually drove by the Laurie Lee School today, and if you look on the outside of it, I know you're always outside. I looked at that today, and I thought we already got rid of it. It looked so bad, the yard, basketball court down, grass up, high up off the fence. Didn't look too good to me. Normally, it looks pretty decent. Is it like we're leaving it, so
No,
they're kind of
not at all.
forgetting
Just,
it? No?
haven't
Okay.
had the grass cut.
Oh, that's all right. I know school's ending Friday, correct?
It is.
So that's fine, but it just didn't look that good to me driving by it today.
I'll make
that's
sure
all.
it gets taken care
Thanks,
of.
buddy. Appreciate it.
We'll be using that in September. That stays.
Yeah, I'm just saying what I seen this today. I drove by it today. It just doesn't look really good. It looked like they were ripping apart the outside of it, to be honest with you. So, thank you.
Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to start by saying this is good that we're going to be establishing our own day school. I'm very disappointed that it's not going to be in Lowell. I understand it's a one-year temporary thing. I think one of the advantages that we certainly talked about, in addition to the savings and being able to have our staff, who do a very good job with these children, the benefits of staying in district. So I really would like to see that happen, and then take the year and find a good space here at home. But I don't want to be beating a dead horse, but I'd like to just support Ms. Martin's comments and also Mr. Gignat's comments. I am the chair of the Student Support Services Special Education Subcommittee. I think even just a couple of reports about on progress, I appreciate you want to take some burden for the lack of communication, but from my experience of being on the school committee in the past, we did get regular reports about all the significant things that were happening, even if it was in flux, even if it was like to get the RFP, get notice of that, so that we know what's going on. I mean, we get regular notices about incidents that happen across our schools, and that's pretty much it. And I feel like it's very difficult to do this work in a vacuum. that we need to be apprised of the information so that we can be part of the solution. That's why we're here. So I want to reiterate that because I do feel that myself as well, which was part of the reason for a motion that I took off earlier tonight, is really, and as I said to the superintendent, I'm looking to provide specifics about ways that we can improve the communication, because I understand communication is a two-way street, and that to just say, I want more communication is not that helpful. But to say specifically, these are some areas that we were, from my past experience being on this board, that we were apprised of. And this is an example where, I totally support what we're trying to do with this day school. I think it is absolutely the way we need to go and grow our special education services to our children. But to have, to find out about it on June 21st, it is difficult because we talked about it a few months ago. And we've been talking about it, as Ms. Crystal said, for several years. But during the budget process in particular, we talked about it. And I think numerous members expressed interest in, keep us informed as the things, as more information comes to light, let us know what's going on. So I just would like to end with that. Thank you.
Again, I think that, this discussion on this is probably still preliminary, and we wouldn't be having it if it hadn't been on the council agenda last evening, and it just had to be on the council agenda so that we could follow through with the process. But until the process gets a little further along, it probably isn't worthwhile having the discussion until we're a little bit finalized. I would say this.
Methuen is not in flux.
Methuen's a different thing. I'm not
But
talking
Methuen
about.
is part of my whole point is Methuen.
Okay.
There are a number of pieces, but the point about communication includes that we're voting tonight on this issue.
I have nothing to do with Methuen other than I'll be voting for it along with you a little bit in a few minutes from now. But I would want to just point out that there is great incentive to bring the students back to Lowell. There's also great financial incentive for the school district. And those things are important as well. Any further discussion? Ms. Martin and Mr. Gignac.
I'd reiterate what you just said, and I think all of us recognize what a positive step this is, and the savings it represents, absolutely, in the long term. More importantly, the quality of service, being able to legitimately provide the least restrictive educational environment for students right in their own community, which I think is huge. Notwithstanding what the council is doing in terms of releasing buildings and all that, because I understand that that's happening, and there are certain prescriptive ways that needs to happen. Just from our corner of the world, on the school side, an endeavor like this should have engendered a great deal more information and sharing of kind of this entire process, so that, again, just to make the point, we shouldn't be here on June 21st making a decision like this when we haven't had any of the information leading up to it. So I just, I appreciate the support from Ms. Doherty, and we are making comparison to past practice. So, expectations certainly change over time, but I think that using the committee as a force for good by getting us involved and involving us in these processes rather than backing us into situations can be a far more positive dynamic and will result in much better planning and being able to kind of be on the same team as we go through this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and just I'll wrap it up, but just to comment, I had a motion on in May to do exactly what we're discussing now, to provide a subcommittee with all information related to the CSA Day School, and I think the Special Education Department gave us a great presentation on their plans on what they were going to do. But I was also looking for information on what was going to be in the bid document and in the RFP. And I think, I understand that we were under a time crunch and that we had to get it out in the street. But, when people are asking me questions of what we're looking for, this and that, and, I have yet to see the RFP, and I think that would have been an important part of the process. So we had some presentations, but I think, if we had put it all together in a little better format, I think it would have pleased the rest of the body, but I understand. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yes, just
Mr. Hoey.
I think this special ed issue, if you go back on our agenda tonight, we have the permission to enter, and I've been through that. I looked over it a few times, and special ed is, like I said, is something I'm learning every day a little bit more about. But like, we're already sending something to Crest, like 3.2 million, 2 students for 173 million. I'm gonna skip over some of them, but 3 students for 686,000. 3 students for 322,000. You keep looking, you can find some up into the 800. Here's 11 students for 821,000, 2 students for 813,000. My point to all these high numbers is, I think we're going in the right direction. I know we didn't get a lot of information, but I think we have to do something quick. Is that how you feel, Mr. Superintendent, about this, that we're ready to vote on? Yeah, absolutely, okay. Because I'm just a little concerned about some numbers here, but I'm fine with it myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I would just want to say that I think we've all been pretty clear that we're supportive, and that we're all going to be voting in favor of it, that we're all just trying to be able to build a better, stronger, faster communication mechanism for the future.
Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really didn't want to talk too much about this one, but everybody's expressing concern. But one thing that wasn't said, and everybody seems to forget, that we are not in control of buildings. So when we started talking about the CSA school more than a year ago, and then we talked about it during the budget more at length, but even before that, our job is to go and put the request of our needs to the city, which we did. And they have done a superb job in speeding up all their efforts to try to come up with different solutions. Now, when they're looking at various solutions, which they had not authorized us to talk about, because they're dealing with several people. There are competitive edges to be dealt about. There are several issues in here, and we just have to trust them that they're doing the best they can. And I understand they've been working very hard, and they were able to pull off a last-minute agreement to help us out for next year. So that's an issue all by itself, and I think if we were the ones who were building this building directly, you probably would have heard a lot from us. We don't do all of these things. We do go take to them our needs, and we say, this is what we need, and this is what we'd like to have in order to save this much money. And we gave them the same report as you have received during the budget of what the CSA school would mean to us. And we did that, and obviously they recognized the merit of that, and they decided they're going to step it up and do everything they can to provide us with a permanent solution. The permanent solution belongs to them. We need to let them do their work. I for one, would love to have more information, but there are a lot of things I didn't get myself. And they try to brief us of what they do generally, but they don't really get too much in specifics because, as you know, you're negotiating with people, and there are a lot of things you can't just, bring out to the public while you're negotiating with. The people you're negotiating with do not appreciate that until you finalize some negotiations. So we need to let them do their work. I, for one, am very thankful for what they're trying to do to help us, and I will not sit in here and criticize them for their time. I would have loved to see them giving us something sooner so we can start it in Lowell in September. That did not happen. I know for a fact it's not their fault. It's not because they didn't try hard. They tried very hard, and they're still trying to get us something mid-year or something around February. Now, as far as the renting of the space is concerned, I think we did try to get people, and I know everybody helped, and even in the administration, in the city administration, they helped very much to try to convince people to provide us with some space. And as Jennifer said earlier, a lot of people who had space were not interested to have a mix of students within their businesses. It's unfortunate that we had only one bidder, and that bidder happens to be outside of Lowell, but the fortunate thing is we can start in September. I would rather do this and tell you that we're going to have this facility that is approved for that purpose, a facility that this DESE has approved for that purpose, that has all the facility for our kids, a facility that most of our kids know it already because they've been in it. So a lot of our teachers know it. They've been working with that staff. I'd rather come back and tell you that now at the last minute, then come back at the last minute and say, I'm really sorry, we were not able to pull it off, and we have to go back and amend our budget, and we have to go back to the city to support us with more funding because we were not able to realize the saving we want to do. So I know it's a difficult situation because you want more information, but it is information we did not have for the most part, or the information that even if we did have, it didn't belong to us, and we had no authority or authorization to be released because they were in the middle of negotiation of several parties. And I hope you understand that. It was not meant to be keeping you uninformed. What is the purpose of doing that? There is no purpose to it. So I fail to understand why would you even think that it was a lack of information as opposed to there must have been another reason for it. And the other reason is that, as I explained, it's a very difficult process, and it's a process that everybody's trying to help achieve, and it's a tough one. Trying to put together a school in less than a year. Most districts take 2-3 years to plan for a school. And we're doing it on the fly with less than a year. I think I commend the team for even telling me that they're going to be ready for September. I think that's a huge achievement. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, could I just ask one question? Do we have, do you have an open house in Methuen for this? Is that, I mean, how do you do that? Is that, or maybe everybody's already gone there, or could you just explain that? I mean, I guess if I was a parent of one of those students, I'd want an open house.
Absolutely. So we are planning to have students and families come and visit. Part of what we'll do, we know that these kiddos have difficulty transitioning, so we're going to be doing home visits. We're going to be taking pictures of the school, of the staff, working with the parents to show them how to review with the kids what's going to happen. And we will be having open houses and having people in so that they feel comfortable and understand what's happening. And we'll then continue to work with them as we transition to Lowell as well in the same way.
Thank you. So if there's no further discussion, the chair would entertain a motion to approve this component of the permission to enter by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, roll call.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota? Yes. Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
If there's no further discussion on that item, then we'll move on to capital improvement report. Is there any discussion regarding the capital improvement report? If not, we'll move on to the report of DESE and local school climate surveys. Any discussion? Ms. Martin and Ms. Doherty.
You can go.
I was just going to ask if we could get a report about the report, just get a summary.
So this is a report in response to your motion relative to the DESE school climate survey, as well as a recommendation of whether we go forward with that survey, another one. And Paul Schlipman is here this evening, the producer of this report, and I'd ask Paul to share with you the contents.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the school committee, friends and colleagues. The scope of the request that I sort of understood it is rooted in the discussion earlier this year on the MASE listserv pertaining to the Department of Education's decision to append the 5th, 8th, and 10th grade MCAS with a school climate survey. There was considerable criticism of this, and for pretty good reason. Climate surveys do measure climate, and climate is probably at its low point at the conclusion of the MCAS. I'm sure that students at the end of the MCAS are probably, on one level, being happy to be done with the MCAS, but on another level, it's not like you're coming out of an ice cream social. So a lot of districts were talking about not doing it or trying to find something else to do. Fortunately for us, we're in the process of working with the Massachusetts Consortium for Innovative Education Assessment, which is looking to build a system of evaluating schools that's different than what the Department of Education does. DESE is basically, how'd you do on the MCAS, here's your rating. And they've built a system using Somerville data and used surveys of this nature. MCIEA right now consists of Attleboro, Boston, Lowell, Revere, Somerville, and Winchester. And the reason why it's a consortium and a collaborative effort, the board of directors consists of the president of the teachers union and the superintendent in each of these districts. So this is a cooperative effort in which we're seeking to get good descriptive data that we can all agree is useful. MCIEA has developed a teacher perception survey and a student perception survey. They've been rolling it out since the beginning of this month. Some districts did it late May, but we're in a cycle right now just trying to finish up with teachers and students. We're also contracted with Hanover Research to help us with the strategic plan. And they have done for us a survey for parent and community perception, which is out in the field right now. We will be sending further notices out to parents with the report cards going out on Friday, and we're extending the date to participate on the survey until Wednesday, June 28th. There is a link on the district website for any member of the community or any parent who wants to participate in this. Survey responses to date are not as high as we'd like. We hope that with the report cards we'll get a pretty good sample. And all this data is going to present for us some baseline data moving forward as we set forth some key performance indicators within the context of the strategic plan and the data dashboard. Which is a very convenient timing, as DESE, in terms of the testing, has designated 2017 as the baseline year, as the first year going forward for MCAS 2.0, so that we'll be able to take a look at this year's data, get the first really good comparative look at how we are to the rest of the state over the past couple of years, since the state is divided up into two instruments, and use that as well as a baseline for us as we look to develop KPIs and move the district forward. So that's where we're standing right now. The MCIEA will be looking at state data coming out of the MCAS survey. We think ours is a better instrument. The teacher survey has gotten some positive reactions from the teaching staff as being thoughtful questions that they're happy to respond to. And I think that going forward, as we're concatenating the data and comparing to the other MCIEA districts, we'll be able to give you some solid information that's going to help the school committee to make thoughtful decisions about where to leverage resources and policies to move the district forward.
Thank you. If I could just follow up. So if I understand you correctly, my motion, as you know, and I think I had an earlier motion regarding educating the whole child, that really started from the whole ESSE, from the federal government, which I'm a big proponent of educating the whole child, not just looking at these math and reading scores, but looking at other factors like school climate. And my idea behind this was actually to do what you've done, give us a recommendation, but it sounds like you've already moved forward with it.
Yeah,
So-
in that we committed earlier in the year to participate in the MCIEA, so it was something that was already in the pipeline.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. So the two pillars that you mentioned in your report, students learn in a respectful, joyful community that attends to the whole child, and pillar 4, every educator engages parents, the community, and partners. These are key parts of our strategic plan,
Yes,
as we know, and they're very important to all of us here as we move forward as a district. And I guess I'm going to go back to that same thing about communication, that if we could have gotten a report that said, you know, we looked at DESE, we looked at the problem that our fifth grader is a middle school and their fifth grader is elementary, or, you know, I mean, that was one of the things you mentioned in the report, and that their survey is maybe not as complete as this consortium. I know the superintendent had informed me that Lowell was part of this consortium. I was aware of that. Again, I just would have liked to have that report saying, here's the link to the survey that we've decided to use based on the consortium. These are the reasons we think it's better. You know, just that little bit of piece. I'm happy to hear that we have done the survey. I was not aware that we were doing it. It happened, what, last week? With all the students, and how are we reaching out to parents?
How have we reached out to parents? We've asked schools to send notices out to all parents. We've gone out on the social media of the district. We've done a Connect Ed phone call, and we're going back out again with another invitation with the report cards. And those invitations are out in 4 languages: English, Khmer, Spanish, and Portuguese.
That's great. I'm really happy to hear this, but I got to frame it around, why couldn't we have known? Why couldn't we have gotten a report that updates us on this is happening in our district? So, I don't want to be like a wet blanket on this. This is, you know, we are moving in the direction I want to be moving, but I don't think it's helpful for us to move forward if I don't say it, if I don't express, you know, the concern that I'm getting with it, that just so that my inbox, my emails from the school department are not just an incident at a school, that there's like substantive, because you're all doing really good work every day in our district. And I just feel like how I can support that work is to be aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wasn't able on the website to kind of get a sense of the instrument, and I didn't want to go on and fill it on, you know, from the website. So is there any kind of compare and contrast of kind of what exists with MCAS versus what this will be telling us?
Well,
just in broad strokes. I don't want to, you know, question by question.
We don't have the details of the MCAS survey, but we do know that the work both of, well, in this case it's the student data. We know that the MCIEA data is research-based survey, and the questions have been pre-tested. They're commonly used questions around the nation, and they've been piloted in Somerville.
Okay. Okay. Do you know if they cover any of the areas, and it's just because we had our report this evening, but Mr. Gignak's motion from February, which was looking for the organizational health survey, so is that another bird that gets struck with this stone? Is there any kind of overall health information that's part of it? And/or could there be, maybe?
I don't know if there's health information in this. It's a perception survey regarding the schools.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really taking a look at perceptions of students, perceptions of teachers, perceptions of parents and community members.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to that, that's what I mean by health. How the schools are feeling, whether it's at the different levels, students, staff, and parents.
In that case, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
With it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is that pardon me for being in a different frame, but when we talk about this in Arlington, we're talking about health surveys. We're talking about the student health safety things that we get presented to us.
Sure.
So my mind just went in that direction.
Sure.
When would we anticipate having the answers?
When will we have the answers? Well, this will all be compiled over the summer, and on the MCIEA, it's compared to what kind of questions, so it will also depend on the response from the other 4 districts. But I would anticipate that we'd get Hanover and MCIEA data over the summer, and maybe even get some raw data without the comparatives sooner than that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I did register to speak on the agenda item, so. Okay, thank you, sir. I am a little concerned to read about a trip to North Carolina because I'm not convinced it's likely to yield good results for Lowell. These are historically black and Hispanic colleges that have played a very important role in their settings, and they do have diverse candidates who we could be interested in to have in Lowell. But my concern is I don't see any special reason why they would likely to come to Lowell. Not only is the South quite culturally different from Lowell, but there are also plenty of urgent educational needs in North Carolina, where I also happen to live for a year, that will likely make candidates want to stay and work close to home. So I have doubts whether this exercise will yield useful results. And I'm particularly concerned that the report doesn't reference any conversations with candidates who might potentially be interested in Lowell, but only discussions with administrators who could have been talked to over the telephone. I note also that 29% of Lowell District students are Asian, and candidates from these schools in the South may not be quite so aware of the needs of the Asian community. What I feel is there's a need for more focus and rigor from the district rather than this sort of exercise. As I've told the superintendent, hiring a professional recruiting firm for high school principal hiring was a good idea, and that could well extend to general recruitment processes where a firm has the capacity to plan an effective national campaign. In addition, there is a need to tell candidates what Lowell is about and why they should work in education here. We need an excellent recruitment website to tell the story about Lowell and its educational needs, to honestly talk about special needs and deficiencies, and to invite people excited about working on these critical issues to come forward. There should be essays by existing staff and students, videos, there should be live. There should also be places to add blogs and to invite interested candidates to identify themselves and join the conversation. The site could also serve as a focus for any future recruitment visits that should either be managed by a professional firm or have a predominantly Northeast regional focus. The current site of the Office of Human Resources Personnel and Recruitment is frankly not adequate. There is almost nothing about Lowell public schools, nothing to draw people into applying for jobs. The message from looking at the site is frankly, oh, we are a nondescript place to work. I personally know some great Lowell High School graduates who could get together and make a superb site for you, but there are many others who could work on this also, and it needs to be done. There's a need also for greater vision and clarity in recruitment efforts and expenditures, and I would strongly recommend bringing in a professional educational recruitment services where the capacity doesn't exist without them. Regarding the Lowell High School principal appointment, I'm glad that the superintendent has now gone ahead with the idea of bringing in a recruitment firm. If this had been done when I called for it earlier, we might well have had some candidates to appoint right now, but nonetheless, I'm very happy that we're now going and doing this. Given the impossibility of having someone starting this summer, I would recommend having an interim administration for a full year and taking the time to complete the hiring exercise professionally. I do agree with the superintendent on the need for someone with a high level of executive experience suited to the managerial complexities of the job in Lowell, but I would once more emphasize the need to have someone who is additionally a highly qualified educator, knowledgeable about the special needs of disadvantaged kids, and able and willing to implement programs from which they will benefit and grow. There are wonderful educators and managers out there, and we need a well-developed, focused, and disciplined approach to find them. And that applies both to the search for a new high school head and for the district's recruitment efforts as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion, any further discussion on the recruiting trip? Hearing none, the only thing I would add, Mr. Richmond, is you came to Lowell, and I don't think that you have a Lowell accent, so...
I definitely came from England, but I've lived in the Northeast most of the time, and I was a fish out of water my 1 year I taught at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah, just for the record, Mr. Mayor, we have had an incredible recruit from Tennessee. I think it happened just about 2 days ago, and we're very proud to be able to attract people who are very eager to come to Lowell. We sold them Lowell, and this person can't wait to move to Lowell and be serving our public schools. So things do happen. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion on this item, we'll move on to quarterly reports on motions. Any discussion regarding quarterly reports on motions? Ms. Martin.
If I could just ask, as tends to happen, this tends to get a little unwieldy, and there's a lot of old things on here that I think we could eliminate. And I don't know, I know it's a little bit late, but if we might be able collectively as a body, just kind of go through and get rid of some of these that keep appearing just because we haven't eliminated them yet. And I don't know if I would ask my colleagues if they're comfortable with that, if you want to put the time in now.
If
And
I
I don't think
may,
it'd be a long time, but.
if I may, Ms. Martin, offer an alternative to that. If you recall, I'm sorry? If you recall, we have done something like this, where we had invited all the school committee members to send us their feedback on this one, and we were happy to take your feedback in and tell us what you want. Rather, if you don't want to spend that much time over here, you're more than welcome to look at this one and send us your feedback, and not have to take a vote on it today.
So, but, I mean, it's a public document, so we'd need to be able to submit it to you, and then you'd need to be able to include it. Okay.
To bring it
So I
back.
have two that I'd like to discuss tonight. There are others, and I would definitely encourage my colleagues to look at it. I guess the first one I would say is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement access to LPS is something that, to my mind, has been resolved. That was created by the administration. This committee voted on it and approved it. So to my sense, that does count as completed.
What number is that?
That's right, number 11. Sorry, yeah, I know it's multi-page.
So you want to make that completed?
Completed, I mean, unless the administration has other. Okay, so it's done, great.
Anything else?
I'm going to leave the rest of them alone, but if I could, just the numbers 7 and 8 under, I guess, under Human Resources, if I'm reading that right. Hiring new head of school for Lowell High School, and then the staffing plans for principals and assistant principals. So these were both motions that I had put in April 5th, 2017. They're listed as completed as of 5/2. I didn't remember receiving that information, so I did go back and look at the meeting on 5/3. There's nothing included in that packet in terms of a report. So if I could if you could show me what you had given me before, that would be great, or if we could get that actual information.
We have given that verbally. Orally, that day of that meeting, we have talked about the process. We explained to you the process that we were going to go through.
So
You want
looking at the
something in
first one,
writing?
the hiring for the new head of school.
Right.
I know that one of the key things that I had asked as I look at this was the public sessions. To my mind, to my understanding, there were no public sessions that happened as part of that process. Is that correct?
No, because we never selected a person to go forward to public session to do any public session further.
So you'd be only doing it with the finalist?
As a meet and greet in public sessions at this point.
So there weren't going to be any opportunities for the public to participate
That
in the
was not part-
actual interview process?
That wasn't. When we explained the process, if you recall, we had said we were going to go into a final, and there was a team that was looking at the final candidates, and then that team was supposed to look at the finals, and before they make their final decisions, look at selecting 2 or 3 that they would like to consider. Those we were going to have different public processes for them, one for students, one for teachers, and one for parents. The committee felt that they did not want to advance anyone further.
Those 3.
And that was the end of that.
Okay. So then in terms of the staffing plan for the principals and assistant principals, well, in terms of the report that I would have anticipated getting, which listed out all the different changes that were happening, listing out principals, assistant principals throughout the district and what the moves were that were happening. I'm sure you can recall, because we had this conversation on the floor. I'd mentioned to you that I had heard a great deal of buzz, that there was a lot of dramatic changes happening.
I've sent
and I
out
was
several
hoping
emails whenever we appointed, and today we have appointed more. Would you like to have a summary of all of them?
I would like to have a report that would list out all those different positions. I'd also just, maybe this is another one of those communication questions, but an email isn't a public document, so that if a motion is made at a meeting, it needs to be responded to at one of our meetings. So if...
Ms. Sheehy will make sure to have that.
So we
for you
could,
next week.
just to be
Thank
clear,
you.
I'm looking every one of our 29 schools so that we can see who's principal, assistant principal, what the moves that have happened over the course of time, just so we can track that. Thank you.
If I could just add to that, again, we're going back to the kind of past practice. When we had a new principal that was appointed, we would usually get some resume that went with it. So when you introduced them to us, we'd have information to go along with that. And that was just good to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question regarding two lines in this transfer. The Director of Technology looks like you're moving $13,000 into that line, as well as the Director of Operations and Maintenance.
Right.
Why is that?
The Director I'll put the microphone on so everyone can hear me clearly. We had budgeted $60,000 for the director, or $60,000 for the Director of Operations and Maintenance. We needed to move $15,000 into that line item to pay for his salary, because part of his salary was coming from use of facilities. So if you looked in the budget, his salary was split from local funds and part from revolving funds use of facilities. So we needed to increase that line item. For the Director of Technology, again, we had budgeted, some of the dollars were budgeted in use of, not use of facilities, but food service reimbursement account, again, a revolving fund, and some of it was from the local funds.
So if the plan was to use the revolving funds, why are we now using general funds to make up that difference?
Let me look at the monthly financial report and start there. Let's go to that line item. Let's go to the, if you go to 4,000, look on your monthly financial report.
Yep.
And we're going to look for the Director of Operations. The Supervisor of Custodians.
What line is that?
It's object 512906. It's the second line under object or function 3600.
Yep.
Okay, so the budget was 65,000.
And we were going to use 15,000 from the revolving fund, correct?
Correct.
Now this budget transfer is requesting that we use general fund monies rather than revolving fund.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Why is that?
Probably because at the time I printed this report, the use of facilities journal entry did not kick in, and I wanted to provide this, have a remove any deficits. And so when I'm going to come up with in July of next month, I'm going to have a comprehensive budget journal entry to take out any deficits and and then take the surplus line items. So any dollars that show surplus, I'm going to use those to offset the deficits. So I'm going to do a cleanup budget entry. So this is sort of temporary until those expenditure transfers kicked in. Once those kick in, then I can relook at these accounts and sort of do a cleanup journal entry in July. And so remove any deficits.
Okay, so I'm just a little confused as to why. So we're making a temporary transfer? Yeah, Mr. Superintendent.
If I may?
Yeah.
The salary is coming normally from two parts.
Yeah.
One of them is being the
revolving.
The revolving accounts. But when we're paying people, they come always from one account from the city. They have one account and they just keep paying from that account. They keep paying from that account.
So a
until
journal
we make,
entry.
we actually, when we say salary is paid from another account, we don't actually instruct the city to pay them from two different accounts. The city pays always from one account, and then at some point we do a transfer from the revolving account back to us for that amount that was already seen in the budget. That transfer has not taken place yet.
Okay.
So our salary accounts will, if before that transfer is taking place, our salary accounts will obviously be exposed. So we needed to make some entries to accommodate immediately the need to have the salaries account non-exposed until usually that is consolidated at the end of the year. Whatever the last entry of cleanup.
Sure. So wouldn't the proper entry be to transfer the 15,000 from food service food service rather than general?
It could have been. It could have
right
been
now,
that way. But right now,
what you're telling me is that tonight we're transferring 15 from multiple accounts to fund this position, and then later in the month you're going to make another transfer.
they'll have to clean up at the end of the year.
Okay.
And that's not really common to us. That's about, everybody does that. Even the city does that.
I want to make sure that when I presented a report to you, to the school committee, when I presented a report to the school committee, that we had covered the deficits. So I wanted to make sure that I was providing a report showing that we had the funds to pay for any accounts that were in the deficit position.
Okay, and then next month you'll provide us with some entries that will basically reverse this.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I get, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, it was a little complicated to explain. I needed a non-accountant to help me explain that, so fortunately he can convert.
The superintendent, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So, good question.
Mr. Hoy, then Mr.
Gary, if you could, what did we bring in for the use of facilities this year? Is it over 200,000?
That's a good question. We're taking in about 400,000. We transferred 129,000 in the budget, but we also charge any overtime that is related to after-school uses of the buildings.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Martin?
Trying to improve the communication every step of the way.
Thank you very much. So looking at your monthly budget report,
Yes.
so this would be through June 13, current to that date. We still have about 3 weeks that will get calculated into all this, correct?
That's correct.
Great. So my question would be, we're anticipating now a year-end projection of 0.
Yes.
Now comparing that with the carry forward from last year, which was 1.8 million, could you describe for me how we came to that? I know at the end of last year, we had a great many conversations about the circuit breaker and a lot of different things that were challenging in terms of communication. That could be our theme for the day, Gary. So could you communicate to me what the difference is in the way that last year was we were moving towards wrap-up at the end of last year, and how we're moving towards wrap-up at the end of this year? That gets us to a 0.
Okay, so comparing and contrasting last year to this year, I think that's your question. Yeah, we just want to be certain we're communicating exactly. Well, this year, the budget was, very tight. So we did not have very much available funds left. So we're working with a much smaller available budget. And when in fact we looked at it, we're watching it day by day, and we've got $915,000 of purchase requisitions that we're holding, and then we're going to then release those as we see that there's more available funds after all our expenditures have hit. And the major expenditure is the payroll. Yeah. So we've got major summer payrolls that are going to hit very soon. So we'll have they're all hitting in June, end of June. Now, these summer payrolls are those for 52-week teachers and paras professionals. They still get billed for this fiscal year, right?
It's anticipated already in this
Yes.
breakdown for you.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to say something,
Yes,
Mr.
if I may, and I think the question was also in describing the difference between last year's having a surplus and this year not having a surplus. Part of the reason that we did have a tighter budget is also there are some big chunks of funding that we did not have to worry about last year. If you recall, all of you, we did have more than $500,000, nearly $600,000 of grants for the paraprofessionals that we lost, and we absorbed that as a new cost as part of the budget without having increased the budget by that amount. There were also, Jennifer McChrystal has left, unfortunately, but she would tell you also that some of the increases occurred in SPED, which are totally unexpected, and they will be seen at the end of the year. So that's what created this budget year tighter, not allowing us to have the same surplus as we did last year.
Yeah, and I was going to say exactly that. But he beat me
In
to the
stereo,
punch.
that would have been very entertaining. So in terms of the expenditures and the breakdown that we're looking, the things you're holding back right now, so recognizing that the salary is non-negotiable, obviously those need to get paid out, is there anything under that category, like some of the purchase orders and things like that, would it be wise to not make some of those expenditures so that there would be some carryover into the next year?
They're all the purchase requisitions are vital for, maybe vital is not the right word, but I think they're would be beneficial for students for next year. And we're looking at science kits for the middle school. We're looking at copiers. You may say, well, we can hold off copiers. That would be our lower priority, but keep in mind that by replacing some old, I'm going to use the word clunkers, we're paying a pretty good dime on the repair and maintenance for these older models. So we can be much more efficient and save some operating dollars. So it's advantageous to be able to release all these, and they're within budget. Yes?
Are you all set, Ms. Font? Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The more we sit here and look at this, the more issues I'm going to find. So maybe we should move along. But under professional development on the requisitions sheet, I see that UMass Lowell Inn and Conference Center, there's a LPS Leadership Institute, August 22nd to 23rd for $11,280. That's in the next fiscal year.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to get be able to.
So that wouldn't count towards this tally of
Right.
of FY17 recs.
Right, that would be charged off to the next fiscal year.
Next year, okay.
You all set? Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, so on the motion to approve a transfer in the amount of $423,548, roll call.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
The next item is a budget discrepancy. Chair would entertain a motion to request that the City Council approve the budget amendment. Do we have a motion to that effect by Ms. Doherty and also seconded by Mr. Hoey? I just would inform the school committee, again, going along with the theme of communication this evening, that the City Council did about a week ago make a similar motion. And I'm expecting a response from the city manager at the next meeting next Tuesday. So on the motion, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Moving on, we have a vote to accept the grant in the amount of $2,500 to IDEA camp from Kronos Company. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Dakota. Discussion, roll call.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next is a vote to accept a grant award to the Butler Middle School Athletics Program.
We already did that.
Oh, we already, okay. Next is the proposed position for the EC specialist. We have a motion to approve. Motion approved by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Discussion, roll call. I'm sorry, Ms. Martin.
I'm just wondering if someone could describe the changes now that are happening in this area. I know we had 2 long-time directors, and now that, so this would represent a change. Could you just walk us through that, please?
Yes, this position is a compilation of 2 job positions. The current district support specialist for early childhood is retiring at the end of this month, and also a paraprofessional, parent liaison for early childhood is also retiring. When we were looking at the budget, this position was reconfigured to glean part of the job that the parent liaison was doing, as well as some of the district support specialist position. Additionally, in the hiring of an additional ETC, we were able to pull some of the work around child find that we're required to do by the law, and assign some of that to the new ETC for early childhood. So it's just a reconfiguring of the positions with a lesser salary.
So we're prior, and I know I'm going back a couple years now, but so like 2-3 years ago, there were 2 district-wide support, is that what the title was?
That's correct. There were 2 district early childhood specialists.
Okay. So now we're moving from that model to having this early childhood specialist, and that's the only person doing these things, but we're recognizing that the ETC is taking on some of the...
That's correct.
Some of the duties. So it's gone from 2 full-time and a para down to 1 and some other support from the ETC.
That's correct.
I'm assuming that this is driven by funding.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Not a choice
that we would have made. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next, we have the Director of Accountability. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, roll call.
Could I ask the same question? So this is a new position? Is that accurate?
Yes, this is a new position, but not new funding. We're taking a position of Mr. Neary, who used to be coordinator of school improvement, which has a very old job description back from the 90s. And we're tuning it back to be a new position that is much more in line of what we want to do now. And we're using that exact same funding. That's why we did not come back to you during the budget time suggesting it as a new position. So this is just a replacement of one position, just changing the job description to be more in line of what we really want to do now. The one slight difference, which we have already approached LSAA about it, the old position was a part of LSAA. This position will not be a part of LSAA because part of the job description in this one is that this person will be involved with the school evaluation, which involves a lot of confidential data around the evaluation of the principal, assisting both myself in the evaluation of principals, but assisting also the assistant superintendent for curriculum in evaluation of the schools and the implementation of the curriculum. We have started the discussion with LSAA on this one, and our school attorney, full labor attorney, has already made them aware of it and explained to them the need to do that, that whenever somebody has access to that kind of confidential information, that person cannot be part of the union.
So that's the evaluation and kind of supervision aspect of that. Are there any direct reports to this position? Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
Through you, just another follow-up question to the superintendent. So the way I read this description, it sounds like this person would also be working with our principals around professional development. Am I understanding that correctly? And helping to get them collaborating more and
Yes. Let me also explain also, this was also, I mean, it wasn't really driven by funding necessarily, by need of funding such as the other one in EC, but it was driven by the need to do exactly what I had mentioned earlier. But part of what we did here is anytime you create a new position, you try to achieve some funding efficiencies. So if you recall, 2 years before Ms. Cheryl Fitzpatrick had left us, she was involved as well with PD of the leadership PD. And then when she left us very late in the summer, we had put a plan very quickly to try to carry out the PD activities and the leadership of that for all the administrators. So at that time, with the very little time we had, we put together a plan that of 4 stipends, where we stipended some of our administrators to carry out that effort. If you not too long ago, you had yourself, I think, asked me a question as, are we continuing with that? And my answer was no, we are not. So we taking this opportunity to fold part of that, overseeing that activity of organizing and managing that piece under the leadership of the assistant superintendent of curriculum to help into that and not have to spend that money. So essentially that salary that we used to pay, which was about 110, in the first year we eliminated about 50,000 of it. This year we're eliminating the remaining 60.
I believe Ms. Desmond had her hand up earlier. Were you going to add something?
I think that one of the pieces of this position that is critical is that our leaders are responsible to report to the Department of Ed, school and professional practice goals. And then we also have our district strategic plan that we would like to align all of those things along with our professional development for our leaders. So this was a great opportunity to be able to, this position when Mr. Neary was in the position was around performance improvement mapping. PIM was the old title, but that's no longer in existence with the state. So now what we're doing is we're doing professional practice and student learning goals at the building level. So we would like to develop the position to be able to create more strategic alliance across the district in these areas.
If I could just add one thing, from my conversations with the superintendent, I love this idea of really building a strong, supportive team with our leaders, especially when we saw so many new principals or people moving into the role new. They need that support and the direction and the professional development. So I think this is a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? If not, we'll move on to job position. I'm sorry, we have a motion to approve and seconded. Roll call.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next, we have job position changes. Any discussion? We have a motion to approve by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on the Family Resource Center coordinator. So did that work year change, the number of days in the work year?
That's the same.
It's the same as the existing?
Yes, it was.
And the salary staying the same?
The job description is different because the job description that was in place had a combination between some of the roles that are listed here in the Family Resource Center, as well as the transportation piece. So the big change in the job posting for the Family Resource Center coordinator is more around outreach to families, bringing in community resources, publicizing our community events for our families, and working with multimedias to get word out to families around information, as well as developing some of the online registration portal. We've done some preliminary work, but that isn't up and running yet. So there are a number of additions to this role, 28 to be exact. But I'm really encouraged to see that this could grow into a role that does much more outreach to families and provides the communication to families that we do need. Additionally, one of the goals that I have for this position is that somebody would come into this position and build a parent university, and so that families can not only attend courses but learn along with their children and articulate through our surveys what are the needs and what they would like to see happen for their children, or to even just learn about what is a report card, what does that mean when I get that report card home from my child. So the core, all of the core pieces that were part of the Family Resource Center coordinator position that were non-transportation are still part of that role, with the addition of those pieces that I just spoke about.
Okay. And is the salary staying the same?
It's a coordinator as per contract.
Okay. And so I'm a little confused why the number of days is remaining the same. Wasn't this one of the positions we wanted to extend their work year?
If I may, this specific position is probably one of the highest number of days.
No, I know, it's the highest number in that bargaining unit. I'm aware of that, but
you're saying you wanted to see it readjusted to be like the others?
No, never mind. I just thought in conversations that we wanted this position to be out of the bargaining unit and to work more days because of the need. And that's not what we're doing.
Yes, I see what you're trying to say. This position is still, after talking several times with the union and the labor attorney, it was determined that this position should really remain, and it is already working the same number of days as the non-affiliated, with 227 days. So this position will remain as such. The change in this one is that the part of description, job responsibilities were taken out, the transportation, are going to be replaced by the 28 new items that will hopefully improve that communication with and serving the community better. The transportation one, piece will not be part of the union, because and that was discussed with the LSAA, and we received actually their own recommendation that it agreeing with us that it should not be in the union, the transportation piece, which would be a much lower position, very highly specialized in transportation.
Okay. And my iPad died, so I don't have this in front of me, but what is the funding mechanism? Because this is an additional.
Okay. Well, it's actually it's yes and no. Let me explain. First of all, the coordinator of the Family Resource Center, it's going to be the same. So hopefully it'll be entry level, depending on the experience of the person. Will be entry level. So if anything, there might be some savings. And in terms of the position, the much lower position of transportation, which specializes only in transportation, that is not charged onto our budget. That's charged on the transportation piece, because that's part of managing the transportation. Now, that's in terms of budget. It doesn't really alter necessarily our budget, but in terms of funding mechanism, where would you get the dollars for that? That's from our savings. I just mentioned just a minute ago a saving that we will be recovering by your acceptance and your voting, that earlier job description, that by your vote you have already created $60,000 of saving on that one. So, and there are others as well. So in total, we're confident that we will be able to provide the funding for that in terms of dollars, but in terms of budget, it does not alter our budget.
And the transportation manager works for the business office,
yes.
And family resource coordinator works with student support. Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Ms. Martin?
Just a couple quick questions. So with the Family Resource Center coordinator, again, they're supervising that team in the center?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so they'll be responsible for all that, the supervision,
Correct.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, Mr. Superintendent, so the vote we took tonight, I'm not sure what that was, I'm sorry.
Earlier for the Director of Accountability, by accepting
Okay.
that job description includes now all the PD leadership, which we will no longer have to stipend or hire anybody for, creating a saving of $60,000 immediately.
Okay. So then, looking at the $50,000 that you're referencing in the report, that we're saving by the sped summer school budget, paying it out of current year funds as opposed to next year, is that an additional $50,000? In addition to the 60?
Yes, in the budget that was just passed. The SPED summer school was going to be paid out of local funds, but we learned later that it was being paid, we had a grant to pay that. So that frees up $50,000.
So then 110,000 is being freed up to pay for this?
Yeah, we won't need all that.
I wouldn't think so.
Right.
Yeah, so.
But so I guess the point is there's sufficient monies to pay for those two positions. Before, it was like that years ago before.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Before, no problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Roll call.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Moving on, we're at convention and conference requests. We have 5 requests this evening. If there's no objection, we'll bundle all 5 requests. Chair would entertain a motion to approve all 5 by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. Dakota. Discussion, roll call.
I have
Ms. Martin?
One question.
I'm sorry.
Just a quick question on, if you look down at Dr. Kafawi's trip, it says the cost of the conference and stay will not exceed $1,800 and be paid by the district. And then if you go down and look at Mrs. Durkins, she only gets $750. Is she staying in a cheaper hotel than you, or what? No, I'm serious.
I don't have a house on the Cape.
You're getting $1,800 and she's getting $750.
Ms. Durkin will be staying in her own home on the Cape.
Okay, that's good. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your concern.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next on the communications, we have a thank you note from Mary Alice Foley for the naming of the Butler School Auditorium the Mary Alice Foley Auditorium. Chair would entertain a motion to accept the communication placed on file by Mr. Hoy, seconded by Mr. Gignac. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Dakota. All in favor, all opposed, stand adjourned.